Yep.
Welcome everyone to the Utah Senate. This is our time after our time on the floor to have questions from the press and from the public. I know we're getting more and more viewers and more questions, and we're really pleased that more people are watching this. We want to keep the public informed. I want to just first start out today that there's a situation that's happened to one of the legislators who, I think there was a little story, at least in Utah policy, and we want to clarify some things. I'm not sure if this is a result of what happened to Representative Standard in the first part of the week, but I think that there are some malintended people who may be looking for money to entrap or to try to find ways to get legislators into different positions. And I've brought Senator Vickers in, and he can tell about his experience last night. Senator?
Yeah, thanks. So last evening, a colleague from the legislature and I were planning to attend the University of Utah and Stanford basketball game. So I left the Capitol about 5:30, went back to my room in Little America, changed my clothes, and my colleague called me and said he was on his way back, and just said, okay, I'll wait for you. And when he got there, he texted me and said, I'm ready, where should we meet? And I texted the lobby, and from the text, that was 5:56 p.m. And I put my sweater on, and as I was literally reaching for the door to go outside, there was a knock on my door. And I opened the door, and there's a young lady standing there, and she said, hi. And I said, hi, who are you? And she said, I'm your date. I said, no, you're not. And she says, yes, I'm your date, and we have reservations downtown. I said, no, you're not. I said, what room and what name are you looking for? And she says, no, you don't understand. I'm your date. And I says, no, you're not. And I closed my door. And I waited a few minutes to see, hopefully her leave, but I opened the door, went back out, and my room is fairly close to the elevator, and she was standing in front of the elevator. And I said, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you're doing here. And she says, no, you understand, I'm your date. And I said, no, you're not. And I walked back into my room. I called my colleague and asked him where he was at, and he said he was in the lobby of the hotel. And so I said, would you mind coming up to my room? So he came up to my room, and then we went down together to our car, went to the game. Afterwards, we met with hotel security, reported the incident to Little America Security, and then this morning I reported to our general counsel and legal counsel and security team, as well as the leadership team, to let them know what's going on. It certainly had all the fields of entrapment.
So this has been caused us some alarm, and a couple of things that we've done at this point. One is I've talked to all of the senators to let them know of the situation and to be on high alert in their lives on social media, questioning those who might have malintent to try to entrap us in a situation, and to be together as much as possible, so that, because there's strength in numbers. We also have authorized an investigation of this situation, and so there's not a lot of there really isn't any other details that we can share on this, just because now there's going to be an investigation done. But we wanted at least, so there isn't stories out there that are trying to put something together without the facts, but these are the facts of the situation, and we just want to make sure the facts are out there. But it is under investigation, so you may ask, we're open up for questions, but we'll be limited on what questions we ask because of the investigation.
Senator, can you describe this woman?
She was fairly normal looking. She did not look like any different than any person I would meet on the street, so the way she was dressed or anything like that did not lead me to believe anything about her. She was probably in her 30s, brown hair, but other than that, quite frankly, just kind of normal looking person. So.
And this came as a shock to you.
Oh, yeah.
had been up here with me during the week, and she had left and taken her truck to drive home, had some stuff to take back to the store, but she had already left to go back, so she wasn't in the room when I got there. And yeah, you could say I was shocked.
In light of what happened, the accusations against former Representative Stannard, were you anticipating something like this, Mr. President? Or
No, we didn't anticipate anything like this.
But obviously now everybody's getting warned, just be careful.
But if in fact, through all those allegations, somebody was making money from all that, I can see where malintended people would be attracted to legislators who would be a target. And we want to make sure that all of our senators and representatives are aware that we might be targets to that kind of a behavior.
You think this was an attempt to entrap someone in a situation or to possibly extort money, or both?
We don't know. That's why we've authorized an investigation.
And who conducts the investigation? And is it criminal or?
I don't know what the results of all that would be. We just, so law enforcement is going to look into this, and we'll have some feedback from them. The legalese of all this, we don't know off the top of our head. We'd have to do some research, but just word for the wise for all the legislators. We want to make sure that they're just on high alert that people might try to entrap them for money, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
What about the fact that they knew this, where a senator was staying, the hotel room, and just showed up there? Is there any other precaution other than let's not get in any entrapment situations? I mean, they went to your hotel room.
The hotel has security, and they don't give out hotels, so this may have been a mistake. We don't know. That's why we're doing an investigation.
When I spoke with hotel security last night, they indicated that, the head of security last night indicated he couldn't even contact the front desk to find out what my room number was. So, she never used my name, and I asked, what name are you looking for? She never used my name or who I was at all, but she just said, I'm your date.
Are all the lawmakers grouped together in some way at the hotel? Because most of you stay at Little America, right?
We're dispersed throughout the hotel.
Okay, so it wouldn't just be a question of going to X floor and finding a bunch of lawmakers?
No.
So what did the hotel then say about her knowing that there was a lawmaker in that room?
Well,
we don't know
frankly,
that.
we don't know that.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
And they don't know that either. So it's hard
That's
to.
why there's an investigation.
Were there other, did security tell you there had been other reports of other people receiving similar encounters?
They told me they'd had no incidents at all, and so they were as shocked as I was.
Why do you think you would be targeted?
I have no idea.
Again, we don't know. If this was random or if it was targeted, and that's why there's an investigation.
I just should not divulge that. I think I'm going to be moving, by the way. And I won't be telling you that floor either.
Every night, actually, over here. Anyway.
Is that for real? I mean, is that one of the precautions?
Yeah, that's one of the offers that the hotel made, is
Sure.
to move us, and I think we'll take them up on that.
We don't know what the results of this will be. I think once an investigation is done, if that provides us some more information, then we'll take action as appropriate at that time. But at least what we feel is appropriate at this time is to put everybody at least on alert that there may be people that have malintent that are trying to, for money, try to put us in a situation.
Will there be an increase in security for lawmakers who are staying at hotels and things like that?
That
will you
could
likely
be
put a
part of the
trooper
solution.
on the
Could be
on the
part of the
floor?
solution, and we're trying to figure that out right now.
Who's leading the investigation? Sorry.
Law enforcement.
Is that Salt Lake City Police?
Well, we're authorized through our security up here. They're gonna be working with local law enforcement, which would be Salt Lake City.
So UHP would take the lead?
I don't know how that all works.
But they provide your security, right?
Right, so
they're
we're
coordinating
working
the
through them.
investigation.
Mhm.
Okay. Have you ever heard of a situation like this before where someone approached a lawmaker?
I've actually heard of one other situation, it's been years ago.
Can you describe that?
Not in any detail because I can't remember it, but I think it was a situation where this person was out of town and somebody approached them at their door.
Oh, it was a Utah lawmaker elsewhere out
Yeah.
of state?
Yes.
Or-
Mhm.
Okay.
And so
And-
now the majority caucus is going to be warned about this then?
Yeah.
What about the minority caucus?
We've already warned everybody. Yeah, I actually have personally had groups of senators in here in my office this morning to just alert them of the situation and to be precautious.
What was the reaction when you told them about this?
A little jaw dropping for most of them that hadn't already heard the story, but most of them actually heard the story.
Shock.
And is the House, did you alert your,
House members have been alerted, the House leadership has been alerted of the situation. I think they're gonna take some similar precaution.
did you feel this was brought on by the actions of a House member? If we hadn't had that situation, would we be having this?
Well, it's hard to say that, but I think I think it creates more risk for us, especially if there was parties in that scenario that made money. Which the allegations are is that actually happened.
Of course, the one thing is, I think, for elected officials, is the fact that when those allegations are made, they become front page whether they're for real or not.
What time of the day did all this?
They become what?
They become,
6 p.m.
the accusation becomes real instead of an accusation.
Strange.
It's just when people can make money like this, it attracts those with malintent and intent with vices, and I think there's a high potential for that as a result.
You've mentioned the making money a few times. Is there any indication that either, I don't know if you're referring to the Standard News or this situation, but any hard evidence of that?
We don't know, but there's at least indications of that, and I think even indications of that could bring, profit-seeking people with malintent to that conclusion, that this would be a way to make some money,
Couldn't it also?
whether
be-
it even happened or not.
But couldn't it also be a situation where one member of the legislature allegedly, former member now, allegedly engaged a prostitute, and maybe now the thinking is maybe others would be interested, that the money to be made is simply there, not in selling the story?
Well, I
Or
won't comment to that specifically. I just know by nature that people where money can be had, easy money or whatever you want to call it, people with malintent will be attracted to that type of behavior. And we just want our legislators to be on high alert for that. Sometimes, like myself, I'm a pretty trusting person, and to a flaw. But even at my home, I'm going to be on higher alert, and on social media, I think we all have to be careful with what goes on.
Well, have you been apprised of what potential criminal violations, would this fall under extortion, would this fall under, because approaching someone in a hallway is not necessarily a crime.
This came on to me in the last 3 hours. Those details I could probably answer those next week sometime once we figure that all out. But it was alarming enough that we wanted to immediately start an investigation and make everybody aware of the situation. And that's the steps we've taken so far.
And Senator, did you get the sense she knew who you were, or just that, did you get this feeling or this vibe that she She knew exactly who she was looking for?
You know, that's a good question. I sensed that she didn't know who I was, per se. You know, so I don't have any idea whether she came to a particular room or was looking for a particular person. She never, like I say, I asked who she was looking for, what name. She never responded that led me to believe that, you know, she didn't use my name or who I was or anything like that.
I think that's probably all we want to say about that. I mean, we've been as transparent as we can at this point, and you know, as we have more information and we have these meetings over next week, we could share some other things.
You met with Secretary Zinke?
Yes,
How did that go, and what did you discuss?
Senator Okerlund?
A lot of public lands issues. The Department of the Interior has made some real changes in this first year in the new administration. And I think Secretary Zinke, biggest message I thought was that the United States is now exporting 10 million barrels of oil. We're developing our own resources and energy sources to take care of ourselves, and we'll be doing a lot more of that. It's a tremendous increase to our national economy, billions of dollars to our national economy to have energy available to us and to all of our citizens, so that they have an affordable source of energy. He also talked about trying to get rid of all the regulations that government has created and typically creates over a long period of time. And what he said was that for every new regulation that his BLM creates, they're requiring that 20 existing regulations are done away with. So I think he wants to bring the BLM closer to the people and more reactive to what people in the local areas want. But I think, you know, those were his two greatest messages, and very well received, I thought.
He also talked about the number of people in Utah that are in his office, and notably, I think, is Greg Sheehan, who is now acting director of Fish and Wildlife, but there's others. But he talked about what a great job they were doing, and we know that because they did a great job when they were here. And he talked about an app that they're trying to bring out, and trying to make sure our parks are used properly to show which ones are maybe the busiest. So you can go pick one that isn't as busy, or you can pick a trail that isn't as busy. It'll go red, green, or yellow, or something. He's trying to develop that so that we get good utilization. And with some of this money from some of the revenue of what we're doing with oil exploration, he's trying to upgrade and help the national parks. So we should see some great improvements on our national parks, hopefully.
And I think generally, we here in Utah, at least I'm in favor of it, our 6th national park. And we talked a little bit about that, and some of the congestions and issues and costs and fees that will be charged to get into the national parks. And it was just a great discussion. I think they're really looking at these in a pragmatic way. I actually talked about a situation in my district where Little Cottonwood Road is the most dangerous road in the world for avalanches. And the way they do avalanche control is with a howitzer. So we're lobbing shells into the wilderness. But under past policy, which Senator Zinke says may just be internal policy, they wouldn't allow us to put in what is called an Obelix, which is a remote control device in the wilderness. It's a device that has a little kind of like an egg-looking thing that sits on top that a helicopter can come in and grab, take down, refuel, and take back up there, where through remote control, they could do those avalanche control explosions rather than lobbing howitzer shells into the wilderness. And so it's really refreshing to me to have him respond in that meeting and say, I think that we can maybe just do that internally. So I'm going to be working with his office, because it just doesn't make sense to me that you wouldn't be able to do something more practical and safer for the public than to be shooting a howitzer across the canyon. So anyway,
Secretary Zinke.
it was really, really refreshing to have that kind of input on what's going on.
Secretary is a former Navy SEAL commander, so he really liked the ideas of lobbing howitzers. It was just that he didn't particularly like the idea of using it for avalanche control. And he talked about the restoration of our BLM and more wildlife that we have here in the state of Utah. Over the past several years, we've done some things that have allowed us to have greater wildlife habitat, probably some of the best in the country, and he's very interested in looking at the model here that we have had in Utah that Greg Sheehan has helped us establish, so that we have this tremendous resource in our wildlife.
If I can be excused,
Yeah,
I
go
guess. I've got a school group that came up from my district that I'd like to go visit. And I know that there's going to be a lot of requests for personal interviews, but to be honest with you, I can't tell you anymore. And with the investigation going on, it's probably not appropriate anyway, so I appreciate that. But I've got a school group that came up from Parowan, so I need to go down and visit with them.
President, if I could just say something, you know, it's, when Secretary Zinke was here, I thought one of the most interesting things he told us was about water running down a valley with a couple of different species of fish, comes out of a watershed, runs through a forest, and he talked about having up to 8 agencies that would control that stream and what happened, all the way down to where it turned into irrigation. I thought that was quite fascinating, that it takes that that many agencies. He says basically what happens is they can't agree, so nothing gets done. And they're trying to streamline that process, which makes a lot of sense to many of us here in Utah.
Well, we don't have any questions from our public. I'll take one more question from the media if you had one. If not, we'll see you next week.
Was there anything else covered? I mean, you guys, leadership met this morning for quite a long time. I mean, I know some of it was with Secretary Zinke and some of it would have been the other situation that we already talked about. Anything else covered?
We didn't really meet about the other situation. We've just communicated through our staff. But I had internal personal conversations with the senators here on the entrapment situation. Potential entrapment situation. We're still under investigation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for talking about it.
You have the cabinet there.
Yeah.